Good afternoon, everyone present here. I welcome you all in another session of academic writing workshop, and I will be taking up punctuation marks. It's relevant to usage in the writing, and then what is there which is not required regarding the punctuation mark when you are writing. So before I get into it and before we explore all those different punctuation marks, there is this Nanette L. Avery who says, and here I quote, punctuation marks are like road signs. Without them, we just may get lost. And if that's the case, let's try to understand how far this idea can be defended. So I want all of you to just pay attention to this image and narrate what is going on over here. Maybe that's going to help and understand the importance of punctuation marks in writing. So I give you a minute, just have a look at these images or this picture and try to find out what is going on over here. You may please unmute and speak up. Yes?
Ma'am,
in the first, okay.
Yes.
Go ahead, Nihal.
Please go ahead.
No, ladies first. You go ahead. I'm already quite vocal. Please.
Okay, I will say half and you can continue the rest. So, ma'am, basically in this particular comic, we can see that a thief is basically stealing a bag from a lady and he's running away. So, she's not using her punctuation properly, as in she says, help a thief. So, someone is actually coming to help the thief. But what she actually meant was help exclamation mark a thief, which means that please help me, there is a thief here. So due to the lack of punctuations, basically there is a confusion that is caused and the police people end up helping the thief instead of, catching him. That's what I understood, ma'am. Nihal, you may please continue.
Yeah, great to hear that. But there is this change in a situation for you, Nihal. So I go by the speaker, but then should the lady say help, exclamation mark, or thief? Would that be fine, Nihal? What do you want to say? Yes.
Ma'am, I think after the exclamation mark, I think the it should be written as help. There's a thief, not just a thief. I think the meaning is not very clear.
Okay. So when someone is in such a panicking situation, would that be fine that the person would be paying attention to the sentence structure, making it clear, and then probably going to get a resolution, a solution to the situation, to the problem? Let's try to understand. Anyone else over here would like to comment on it? I would appreciate that. You may try it out. So it's not a right or a wrong response. It's just a response, how you interpret a picture. Yes, anyone would like to do? All right, let's have a look at this idea. How about this? Let's see, grandma. And it looks grandma is excited too. So what is wrong over here? You may try it once again.
Ma'am, it's the lack of a comma.
So
if there's a comma after let's eat, it shows that they're inviting the grandma as well to eat with them. But without the comma, it's like let's eat the grandma.
True.
When there's a comma, there's a pause that is given. So that pause, sometimes they say that the pauses speak more than the words themselves. So the pauses actually help us understand of what's important, and the whole meaning of the sentence changes when you add a pause or a colon or a semicolon, etc.
That's amazing. If I'm not wrong, that's Shivani, right? So quickly, one more for you. For all of you, how would you read this?
It is basically a continuous line and there is no pause or gap in between. So we predict that it is a particular word. And this is the mistake which we tend to do. So that is the thing, ma'am. It lacks the spacing and the gap. It doesn't require any comma because we are saying a complete line. Ma'am, comma comes when, when you are saying the line and you need to even utter the different point of view as well.
Okay, so may I just hear, how will you utter this?
Life is nowhere.
Life is nowhere, that's how you take it. Someone else would like to comment on it? A different way to look at it? Yes? Come on, you can try it out. Life is nowhere, one way to look at this. What can be another way? Yes? Break these words, letters.
Life is now here.
Life is now here. So entirely different way of looking at it. Life is nowhere, colon. Life is now here, maybe, right? So what was the purpose of showing these pictures or images to you? Was to understand the seriousness of using punctuation mark properly. See, there is, to my sense, there is this key difference when you talk about, when you utter and when you write. So when you are uttering, there is this voice modulation, connotation, and the intention of the speaker is absolutely clear to the listener. Wherein, if you look at writing, it is not all the time you can make that intention clear to the reader. So punctuation marks are those helping hands, or rather would say such a family that helps a writer to express the correct intention, right? Though it's contextual, but still we can deal with it, and we should know how to address, how to fix these punctuation marks, making our writing absolutely interesting, and at the same time not giving any kind of misconception or misunderstanding at the end of the receiver. So let's go back to this, for instance. So we can't say help, comma, or exclamation mark, a thief, right? So modulation would work over here. That is what went wrong in this first picture, right? And again, in the second picture, it was very well narrated by, pointed out by Shivani, if I'm not wrong, that yeah, a pause is required, and we should have that sense of using a pause properly, and not all the time we are going to write a pause. So there are different punctuation marks with which you can express what you wish to write. Coming back to it, I request all of you to take this assessment to understand where you are, locate yourself, and then let's look into these ideas to understand better that what would have been a better way to make use of these different punctuation marks in the writing. So following the clock, I give you some 12 minutes. So have a look at this. I think the post is visible at your end in the chat box. So please access that and work on it. Then let's get back to look at this interesting family. I just believe that there is this uninterrupted access to the form and you are reading it out. What I can suggest you is that you can just take out those words where you think maybe a punctuation is required, and you can write that word and use a proper punctuation mark over there. So it includes so many things. So you may try it out.
Ma'am, I think we don't have any option of underlining it.
You can write down
It's
in
simply
this.
just,
That's what I suggested. That you can take the word, borrow the word, and then write.
Done, ma'am.
Please come again.
Ma'am, I said I've done.
Great. Congratulations. So let's wait for a few more to complete this, and then let's get introduced to some of the interesting signs.
Yes, ma'am, we are done.
Right? So how was it? Okay. Before getting into those punctuation marks, there is something really interesting which I just felt that I should share with you, is how to go with in a sentence with capital letters, how to write numerics, how to go with mentioning a date in a write-up, and how about time. What are those standard ways to address all these four different categories when you are writing? It has often been, identified that when you are writing a sentence, from nowhere a capital letter is there in a sentence, and it becomes really difficult to understand that why a capital letter is there in a sentence when it is not required. So this is perhaps going to help you to understand that why do we need to have a capital letter in a word, in a sentence, and when it is not required. So a general structure of a sentence can be understood when there is this period after a after a sentence, sorry, or if the sentence ends with an exclamation mark, or if there is this question mark ending up with in a sentence. So that's how you look at it, right? So general structure of identifying a sentence. Now, sometimes it happens that in a sentence, there is this proper noun which is used. So when it comes to a proper noun, you need to make it with a capital letter, otherwise it can be avoided. So if there is a representation or representative of the whole body, institute, or unit, you can use a capital letter for that particular word. Rest, it should be avoided to have a writing smooth and a decent way of writing a sentence. For example, if there are proper nouns, the names of important people, places, or objects also need a capital letter. Otherwise, do not do that. Let's just find an example over here. He is Ram's friend. The simple example. Obviously, Ram has to be in a capital letter. The R has to be in a capital letter because that's a proper noun. Do not use capital letter until it is absolutely required, as I mentioned. So you may specifically capitalize that particular letter if that comes under a proper noun, place, object, or object. For instance, finals take place in Trinity term. So term need not to be capitalized. Trinity would be enough to capitalize over here and not to make a sentence chaotic. When you're addressing a chancellor of the university, it should always be capitalized. Or when you are, representing, or there is this representation of the whole department division, you need to capitalize. For instance, I'll take an example from the document. The Faculty of English is based on Manor Road. So it represents the whole faculty of the department. The faculty's phone number is 271-055. Here, the faculty is an individual person. So you have to be careful while capitalizing a letter, and you have to understand that in what context that particular word is there in a sentence. So there are for academic division of the university: humanities, mathematical, physical and life sciences, medical sciences, and social sciences. All are with capital letters because they are representing the institution, department, or the body. That's how one should take up capitalizing a letter. Looking at the numbers, what happens? We get confused when we are writing numbers. So how to write numbers? So spell out whole number words for 1 to 10. Good. Figures for numbers above 10 should be written in numeric. Let's have an example. Use a combination of a figure and a word or very large round numbers, such as multiple millions, billions, etc. So how to frame a sentence? To understand this idea, the population of the earth is now 7 billion people. That's how we write numerics when we have to write in a text. That's how we spell it, or that's how we don't spell it if it is not required. So spell out words for first, second, and so on up to and including 10th. Use numbers and ST, ND, RD, TH for larger ordinal numbers. Example, first, second, third, not 1, 2, 3. Remember, because it's going to sound in the similar way you write there. So she was the first person from her school to get a place at Oxford. So that's how we put it. Instead of writing numeric 1 and then ASD, it won't look decent over here if you see that. And that's how it should be written. Always use figures and symbols for percentages, measurements, and currency. Use commas to punctuate large numbers. For instance, question 12 is worth 10 percentage. The spelling isn't required. You can always express with the sign, with the unit. That's how we go with the numbers. Let's have a look at time. You have to decide when you're writing whether you want to go with 12-hour clock or 24-hour clock. So you can't mix that, because in reading it doesn't look good, and otherwise also it might create confusion. So if you are going by 12-hour clock, you can very well mention 11:30 a.m. If you are going by 24-hour clock, you can very well mention 13. And PM isn't required because it is self-explanatory, right? When there is this idea of writing midnight or noon, you don't have to mention 12 noon or 12 midnight. The noon or midnight itself explains that very clearly. So this kind of correction in your writing is going to help you to make it more interesting for the reader, and at the same time omitting some cliched mistakes. For example, the closing date for applications is noon on 12 June, not 12th July or June. Sorry. If using 12-hour clock, don't use additional digits 00 for time on the hour, and close up space between the number and the AM or PM, because again, it's self-explanatory. You don't have to mention when you're using noon or midnight. Now, when it comes to the date, what you're supposed to do, often mistakes, committed is that we go by writing 13th April. TH isn't required when you are writing a date. And when you are mentioning about that particular event, followed by a month or month and date, you should be absolutely clear in writing it down that the date will come before the month. And this is how the pattern goes. Easter this year is on 13 April, not 13th April. Don't use TH, etc. with dates. Just use number and month. And never precede the number with the or the. Why? Because that's not required until there is an emphasis on it. So Easter this year is on the 13th April, no? Is on 13th April. That's how we go about this. Use days with dates only for emphasis or avoidance or confusion of ambiguity, right? The wedding is on 13th December, not 13th December. So I think we need to correct, we need to check. And if unconsciously we are following a pattern, we need to make a check on it and correct ourselves, right? So this is how we go with time, date, capitalizing a letter, and numerics. Let's have a look at this family. How about this? What is it, if someone can tell me? Yes, what is it? What kind of mark is this?
It's explanatory mark, and it's basically used for showing emotions.
Showing emotions. Okay, let's precise this. Of course, you're true. It's an exclamation mark which should be used sparingly and only for genuine exclamations, right? And you all have to help me out in using these exclamations for exclamation marks for these different sudden expressions. And in fact, strong expressions, because we are not prepared for it. And it is so sudden that we make use of exclamation marks showing that, that it's so sudden. So for example, health, that hurts, ouch, go away, I'm telling you, beware. That's how we look at it, isn't it? So it's quite clear and so simple also for all of us to understand the idea of putting an exclamation mark. Am I right? Then please help me out in fixing some of the exclamation marks for these bubbles. Yes, Samath? Samath? You may please unmute and speak up. I can see you raise your hand, Samath.
Try to discuss that.
Oh, sorry, ma'am. It was my mistake.
What is channel design?
All right.
Okay, like I have.
So, yeah, can you please help me with these bubbles? What do you think can be fixed? So study these pictures below and then pick up interesting original exclamations for these speech bubbles. What can you do? So there is this lady who's doing something on desktop. A boy may be playing cricket, just done with the shot. Someone is inquiring about something, or maybe, is a guide to somebody. Someone is doing something with the sword. So, Yogita?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, please.
Ma'am, the lady is seeing some statistics, so maybe she's exclaimed to see them, so maybe she said wow. And the batsman hit a six, so he said six and an exclamation mark.
Okay. What else can we do with these pictures? Good attempt, Yogita. What else can be done?
Ma'am, the traveler may be saying what, and the person on the right side looks like he's fighting, so maybe saying fight. I'm not sure, but this
Yeah,
just
of
came
course.
to me.
So how to put that in an exclamation? Hooray! A six? Wow, I got it. Hey, we found that. Oops, I missed it. How about this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we can express that way. All these expressions are so sudden and interesting as well, right? So this is how we look at it, and this is how you understand. So please help me out in finding some more, exclamation mark for these kind of expressions. For example, lost. Nobody is going to say, wow, I'm lost. Definitely it will come out as help. I think I'm lost. Or if you remember the lady whose bag was stolen by the thief, right? So can I say, wow, what a ghost? Or may I use, hooray, an accident? Inappropriate, right? Yes? You may choose one, you may select one, and may, attempt, may try what kind of expression can be used over here. There's a surprise party, so seeing a beautiful sight, going into battle, Olympics, football match, boys. So,
Ma'am, in some of the sentence you can use like there is an example, a mouse under your chair. So we can simply say beware, there's a mouse, beware a mouse, and after beware there is an exclamation mark, and after that a mouse under your chair.
you made a point here.
And
You did not miss an exclamation mark while mentioning. Very good. What else can be done? Others, please try it out. Meanwhile, we take more examples from Nihal.
Ma'am, in deep water, you can, if the person is drowning, he or she can say, help, I'm drowning.
Yes. So what about exclamation mark? Obviously, that would be there, right?
Yes,
Giving an
after help.
expression of helplessness. Yeah, true. Okay, one more. One more. You can try one more. Come on. Yeah, at least you can try one more.
ma'am, in second sentence we can simply say help, exclamation mark. There's a fire in the house. There's a fire in a house.
Yes. So well fixed, all the exclamation marks by you. Interesting.
And in fifth sentence, you can simply say wow, exclamation mark, surprise party. Because after after hearing the word party, we get excited.
Yeah, and what expression will you get in return? Great, nice to hear that, isn't it? Good attempt. Very well done. Let's get into this practice to understand what we are observing and how to put that in a sentence. So you can access the link from the chat box. And I can see my attendees are so quick. So we'll spend some 5 minutes. And then let's move to another member. Could you access the link?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for informing. So you have to capitalize these letters where you think you can. If an exclamation mark would work over there, please do so. You need to put a period if it's not there in a sentence. So take the liberty of using all that is required in a sentence, and we have done so far. All right. Let's move to the next idea. We make use of it, right? And in speech, we always make use of it. So there are so many questions. We have hardly answers to those questions. So basically, what is a question mark? A curiosity. And why do we use this? Or where shall we use when we are writing? Isn't it? Let's have a look at these ideas to understand the general way of taking up a question mark or writing it down. So there are many ways to make use of this mark, such as direct questions end in a question mark, which we don't say when we utter. For instance, what is your name? Question mark. With the word itself, it's expressed, right? Quite evident that a question is asked. But when you're writing, you need to make sure that if it is a question, you have to use question mark. Are you going to the store? Taking help of a verb, placing it before, and then using a question mark tells us that this is an appropriate way of writing a question mark and asking a question. When someone is writing, another one is reading it. What are the other ways of asking a question, right? So mostly it is used when you are, other than straightforward asking a question, when you are in a direct or indirect speech, right? When there is this direct speech. So indirect questions do not end in a question mark all the time. Let's take an example over here. I asked if you were going to the store. So again, that's a question, but the expression is slightly different, where a question mark is not used, but then it is a form of a question only. So you have to be careful when you're making use of a question mark, that if it is already there, expressed in a sentence, you need not to put a question mark in the end. As you can see, the major difference with the first example and with the second example. I'll read for you again. Are you going to the store? It's a direct question. I asked if you were going to the store. Again, an indirect question, and a question mark is not required in that case. In direct speech, for example, sometimes an apparent statement may be a question, depending on the speaker's tone. And what can that be? You will be happy here, Mom asked. So you'll be happy here is a kind of a query that is made, and it can be framed with a question mark. So that's how you that's how you put a question mark when you are making an inquiry, or that's how you avoid a question mark when it's already stated in a sentence. The question mark is used after a statement followed by a short question. Question tags, if you remember, that's how we make use of question mark once again in a different way. Let's take an example from here. Notice the use of the comma before the question, and that's how you put it appropriately. You are the shortest person here. Emphasis on aren't you. So when you're emphasizing something, you separate it, giving it a pause, and emphasizing that aren't you. So it's a query, right? So that's how we make use of these different ways of expressing a question and make use of putting a question mark as a form of, punctuation style when you are writing. It becomes a little clear when you are speaking, but when you are writing, you have to be absolutely careful as what kind of intention you are putting. So that this can be, I asked if you were going to the store, can be a soft way of asking a question, but that are you going to the store is a strongest expression of asking a question or putting a query to the other party. That's how you look at it. We take this idea of, writing or using a question mark in a writing. Now, this is quite interesting for all of us to have a look at how one should make use of a colon. Let's see, before we read all of these ideas, there is this one thing that I want you to keep in your mind. when you're making use of a colon, you have to see that is your statement having a kind of extension to what you are saying? I mean, is there an extension to your expression, to your statement? Then it becomes a little easy for you to make frequent use of colons, but then again, a disclaimer, not all the time this is going to be good when we look at the writing. You have to be careful how or where you have to make use of a colon, if that's required, or if you're imposing a colon in a sentence. But then you can be sure of using a colon when there is this extension attached to that major idea, which is part of your sentence. Let's have a look at using colon in different ways. So a couple of ways listed out by me to understand that, or in all these different manners, you can make use of a colon with, you know, quite assurance that you are not wrong if you're making use of a colon. So
Excuse me, ma'am.
yes.
Ma'am, can you please maximize the size of this slide? Actually, it's not proper visible.
I can try, Nihal, because I was doing that earlier as well. So is it that you can't read?
With slight difficulty, I can read, but you know, it's
I'll read
not
that for
properly
you.
visible. I have to read it more carefully.
Right, I'll read that for all of you. Not an issue. Let me just see that this setting should not change. You have to pardon me, it's not working. I'll read that for you. To introduce a subclause which follows logically from the text before it, you can make use of a colon. I'll give you one example as well. Before it is, follows logically from the text before it, is not a new concept and depends logically on the preceding main clause. As I told you, if you have an extension to the major idea that you are writing, you're expressing, you can easily make use of a colon, giving an extension to that main idea. You can, for example, the easiest example, you can introduce a list. So what is your main idea? The main idea is he bought the groceries. That's the main idea. And what is there in the groceries? There is an extension to it. So there are eggs, butter, jam, sugar, and pot noodles. And then there is this full stop. So all these words which are part of this major idea is extended, is fixed, is set in an extension with the help of a colon, putting a comma after each word, completing the sense which relies on the major idea, which is he bought the groceries. So what is there in the groceries? All these different items, articles are defined. So you can make use of colon that way. He bought the groceries, and then not using a colon is not going to make the reading clear for the reader. So make use of it. If you're introducing a title or quotation, you have to be careful. If you're quoting somebody, and when you're quoting somebody, you have to show a kind of space from what the quotation is, what the person has said, and how you are taking that quoted idea in your sentence, or how you are borrowing that idea. For example, his words echoed in my mind, colon. And that's a complete sentence. That's a complete sentence in the sense it's giving a sense. Colon, do unto others only good. You may use an exclamation mark if that's there. If that's the culture of that sentence, you may use a question mark. You may simply put a full stop or a period. And then you need to close it once again. So making use of a colon that way becomes really easy when you are quoting somebody's idea, or if you are introducing a person's idea in your conversation. So this kind of extension, this kind of division gives clarity that the idea is borrowed from someone and not yours. So you can separate contrasting parts of a sentence as well. For example, the good are saved, the bad are damned. Dichotomy, and you can put it together in a sentence. That's allowed. So not all the time having small sentences in a writer is going to impress the reader. You may use this kind of punctuation mark, expressing the intention at the same time, making it really interesting for the reader to read. So it gives the complete idea without creating any kind of disturbance in the reading. right? So you can separate these contrasting parts. So good, bad, dichotomy, day, night, maybe a sentence can be framed that way as well. So if you can help me out in giving one sentence where we can see that this is how a comma is used, this is how a colon is used, separating from, separating in a sentence and then, lying back on the major idea. So that's going to help me also to understand that, yeah, this is how another example can be set. Meanwhile, you think, let's take another point over here. Use a colon after the greeting in a business letter. This is really important for us to understand. When you're writing a business letter, a colon is appreciated instead of using a comma. That's more with, informal letters, or maybe you have strong acquaintance with the person, you may use comma. But when you're writing a business letter, it's good to use a colon and then to express what you want to say. And following the colon, you have to be careful that you don't capitalize the word if that's not required. So capitalization can be done in the coming punctuation marks. I'll just give you one example showing how you can capitalize. Or if you are capitalizing in a business letter after greeting or dear sir, and you're writing your point, that capitalization actually emphasizes what you are saying over there. So it's always good to use a colon when you're writing a business letter, right? Use colon to separate hours and minutes. We often do this, but then it is good to separate because again, that dichotomy is there. So you can mention that way, you can make use of colon when you are writing, this time with more confidence because you know why you are using that colon over there. So it's not just a fancy attempt by you, you know the logic behind that, right? Again, a point, use a colon to introduce contrasting statements as well, where there is this, entirely opposite ideas set together. You may use a colon followed by a full stop. I mean, ending a sentence with a full stop, question mark, or an exclamation mark. So this is how we take up this idea of using colon when you are writing. And these general instructions will definitely help you to improve your writing style in a little better manner, right? So here I ask all of you to take this link and try out the style of using colon when you're writing, not changing the meaning in a sentence and understanding where you can make an extraction and or where you can extend the whole idea. Yeah, you may please speak up.
Ma'am, in business letters, you said we can use colon after dear sir. But while writing a business letter, after writing dear sir, we begin the content part from the next line. So what's the use of colon here? Like there's a stop after dear sir, na? We begin next sentence after that line.
I didn't get you. Maybe you're asking that how to take up when we are writing a business letter, expressing this colon after greeting. That is what you're saying?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm not saying this. I'm just saying in business letters, after the, after the date part, like after the date part, the dear sir, sir, these two words are mentioned, right? So after dear sir, we start the next sentence from the next line, not from that line only. So what's the use of colon here?
See,
because there's already a pause now after dear sir. So what's the use of colon here?
All right. How did you identify that there is this pause after dear sir? By that space you're identifying?
Yes. Because there is no word after dear sir.
See, that is what I'm saying. That when you are saluting, when you are at that salutation, you have to make use of a colon to show that dear sir, and then there is an extended idea or a message after that salutation, and you start. So that space or going into next line is a way for us to write. But then using a colon actually tells that you are connected with that greeting, that dear sir, and then you are putting your point before the reader. So you have to make use of colon. That is what I'm saying. Leaving dear sir without any kind of punctuation mark is not that you should do. You should use a punctuation mark. And if you are using comma, you can use, because if you share an acquaintance with the person, so you do when you're writing a business letter. But because it's a business letter, it's a more serious letter, make use of colon and then go into next line, and without capitalizing that word, you can continue writing what you want to write. Nihal, did you get me?
Yes, ma'am. I think you're fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think I have shared the link with you in the chat box. Please access that. Spend some time. Don't be in a hurry. It's colon that you're using. So you should be careful. And you might find a sentence where capitalization is required or some other error is there. So it's quite tricky now. The more we get into these punctuations, it's quite tricky. So pay some attention to it and then close your sentence. Read the sentence properly and then make use of colon. And if you think a comma is required, you may put that as well. You might not find a full stop in that sentence. So you have to take the responsibility of putting a full stop there. So be extra careful when you are rewriting the sentence. If you think a letter should be capitalized, do so.
Yes, ma'am, we are done.
Okay,
I've submitted as well.
good to hear that. Let's move to this next idea. Semicolon. Interesting. And one of the expressions when you are writing. So how to take up this? When you can make use of a semicolon, and if you mistakenly put a semicolon, does that change the meaning? So we'll explore that idea over here. The semicolon is stronger than a comma. Comma is used to pause. What does semicolon do? Let's have a look at it. So semicolon is stronger than a comma, but not as strong as a full stop or a period. It separates two groups of words, which could be two individual sentences, but which are so closely linked in subject matter that a full stop would be too strong to put over there. That's how we have to take up this idea of using a semicolon in a sentence. So sentence will be over only after putting a period, putting a full stop. For instance, one of the examples, the criminal surrendered. He was defeated. So the criminal surrendered, complete sentence, right? He was defeated, a complete sentence. But he is the subject which is there before the semicolon in our sentence. So it automatically depends on that subject. So the orientation or the idea, if that is one, you may make use of a semicolon as a punctuation mark, giving more clarity to the sentences if the sentences are lengthy. Otherwise, also you can use a semicolon for a sentence where you are defining two separate ideas about that same subject, about that same matter, as you can read over here. Now, semicolon is also used in a list when commas are already needed in the phrases contained in that list. So let's have a look at it first, and then let's try to deconstruct this idea. You need colon, 4 eggs, comma, lightly beaten, semicolon. So one idea complete. That is what is required. The instruction or the idea carries the whole theme in it. 1 spoon of nutmeg, comma, grated finely. Again, the second step is complete. You may use a semicolon. And a pint of milk, full stop. So the complete sentence is quite clear to us, making use of a colon and a comma and a semicolon and a full stop, giving proper idea to the reader that what is required or how the sentence is going, which you might not pay attention to when you are speaking. So utterance is entirely different matter. When it comes to writing, it's good to use all these different punctuation marks in a sentence if you are clear, if you're sure about it, that you can make this kind of use in your sentence. Now, going back to the first point, I have mentioned that semicolon is stronger than comma, but not as strong as full stop. So you cannot end a sentence with a semicolon relatively showing a comparison shown with the comma. So you have to end a sentence with a period or an exclamation mark or a question mark, depending upon the nature of the sentence. But the whole lengthy sentence can be divided into or can be distributed under these different punctuation marks, especially with a semicolon, which tells that it is a stronger pause than comma, and also carries a complete idea within it, but depends on the main orientation which is there in a sentence. Going back to this example, let me read the point for all of you once again. The semicolon is also used in a list when commas are already needed in the phrase's content. So when there are phrases which does not give a sense, you may end that sentence, or you may give a stronger pause to that sentence by making use of a semicolon, but then you have to rest the sentence by making use of a full stop only. So it is not a substitute to the full stop, as often it is misunderstood. But yeah, you can make use of it, showing that it's an individual idea, depending on the main theme. Again, it's an individual idea going with the main theme. So it gives a sense. Yes, Yogita? Yogita, I can see you've raised your hand. Maybe that was an accident. Yeah.
Example, it is said you need 4 eggs, 1 spoon of nutmeg, grated. After nutmeg, semicolon should not be placed. I think so. After nutmeg, it should be placed because it is linking 1 spoon of nutmeg and grated finely.
I could partially hear you. See, 1 spoon of nutmeg, and if I put a semicolon over there, it does not give the proper idea. 1 spoon of nutmeg grated finely. So 1 spoon of nutmeg won't work. It has to be grated finely. So the complete idea, if you look at the recipe, the complete idea will be carried that way. If you look at the sentence, it will remain incomplete. So 1 spoon of nutmeg grated finely and a pinch of milk. So if I go by your sentence, so you need 4 eggs lightly beaten, semicolon, 1 spoon of nutmeg, semicolon, grated finely and a pint of milk. So what should be grated finely? And a pinch of milk, again a confusion. So this looks odd man out. It is not making any sense for the reader, that either it should be avoided or it has some kind of connect with the words. Yes, Yogita?
Yeah, now I understood it.
Right. So spend some time and see. Overthinking would put you in a trouble. So spend some time and look at it and try to understand that if this idea is complete, I am absolutely confident in putting a semicolon over here, right? So you have to break these ideas, considering that this idea falls back on the main orientation, right? So that's how you have to take up this practice of semicolon, which is going to be a little challenging for you. And rest, the practice will tell you. So please take this form and spend some time. Be careful when you are making use of a semicolon. If you think a colon is required, you may put that. If you think you can end the sentence with a full stop, you have to do that as well. Yogita, you have raised your hand.
Sorry, ma'am, I forgot to lower it. Sorry.
It's okay. So don't be in a hurry. Spend some time. See where a semicolon is required and don't change the meaning.
Ma'am, I have a question. Don't you think sometimes a semicolon can be replaced by a colon, or sometimes a colon can be replaced by semicolon? There is no hard and fast rule where to use semicolon or where to use colon. Don't you think so? Like in the last assignment, or in the last link that you have sent, I have used some semicolons also. So I think that would be also be appropriate. But even in this assignment, you have said specifically to use semicolon. So that
Okay.
was my doubt. Thank you.
Okay, Nihal. There was this last example which I gave you, where there was this use of a semicolon and there was this use of a colon as well. So what you are trying to say is that if semicolon or colon can be replaced, that is what you are saying, right? And it's not okay if you think it can be replaced. It's not okay because semicolon will give you a complete idea, whereas colon will have an extension to that major idea. The key difference and the big difference, or let me just say a way for you to understand, if you are making use of a colon, that colon has an extension and that will end up with a full stop. Wherein when you are making use of a semicolon, that will have an individual structure of a sentence, will be giving you a complete idea. So that's how we differentiate that, all right, it's not my way to take so easily colon over here and put it. I have to be careful. I have to make use of a semicolon here because because it carries separate idea. So if you've done that, I'll be looking into your forms and I'll check that. I'll definitely revert to you. You have to be careful. That's the key difference. Otherwise, I can make use of a comma or a semicolon or a colon. How does it matter? It changes the meaning of the sentence. And
So
then
you are saying, so ma'am, you are saying a colon, if you use a colon, it means there is a pause. And if you are using semicolon, then it means it's just an extension.
if you are using a colon, there is an extension. And if you are making use of a semicolon, it gives the complete individual idea in that sentence, which fallbacks on the subject, right? Try to understand. So there is pause. Pause is an entirely different thing, right? So it's not matter of a pause over here. It's matter of giving an individual or a complete sense of that individual idea through which you are categorizing or you're separating your sentence. So if there is this content list, you can make use of a colon. But
like if you take this sentence as an example, like I like tea, semicolon, she likes coffee. So don't you think there is a pause after tea? And both sentence can stand individually.
See, these are contrasting ideas. Remember the point which I mentioned when I was talking about semicolon. So if there is this contrasting idea, you can put it together. Now, the point which you're talking about, or let me just say, I understood your worry. Your utterances are all the time contextual. True. So it will carry an entirely different intention, context when you are talking in what sense or in what manner to whom. So the thing which you are saying that can I have that liberty of using or replacing or substituting colon with semicolon, you can't, because you have to look at those basic rules. Otherwise, you can end the sentence by putting a full stop. Why to get into it? Right, Nihal?
Yes, ma'am. Agreed.
So if you're done, shall we move to next idea? And if you need time, no hurry. If there is this lengthy sentence, if there is this lengthy idea, which has different ideas including in it, there are different ideas included in that sentence, better make use of a semicolon, giving right expression to it.
Ma'am, if there were correct answers given after submitting the form, we could have known what are the correct answers. Like
I'll
we could
edit
have
that.
known
I'll
our
definitely share that.
mistakes also.
I'll definitely share that with all of you. So shall I move to next idea?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's have a look at it. What is the next thing coming? Apostrophe. So let's have a look at it. Apostrophe, when to use apostrophe? If required, you make use of apostrophe, otherwise don't get into a confusing combination of words.
Ma'am, you are not audible.
Mom, you're paused, your video is glitching, and even your voice is not audible.
Yes, mom, same this side.
There's a message from Ritu ma'am. She has asked all of you to please revisit those forms which she has shared with you, and just go through and try to check whether all of them are correct. And if not, you can make certain changes as well. So this is a message which she has just shared with me, and she will rejoin us within a few moments. So please stay with us.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible and visible, madam. Welcome
I'm
back.
really sorry for this.
No problems, ma'am. No problem.
It just happened.
Just go ahead, ma'am. It's all fine.
Right, ma'am. So we are on apostrophe. Just give me a minute. Let me share my screen once again. And I apologize. Pardon me for this. I'm sharing. Just a minute.
Okay, Ritu ma'am. In the meantime, I had asked them to revisit all those forms which you had shared.
That's great.
Just check out. Yes. So this is what they have done. I guess they have revisited their forms also. Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, it's just taking time. So
not an issue, ma'am. Not an issue. Go ahead.
So is my screen visible? Is my share visible?
Ma'am, yes. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, ma'am. All right. Coming to apostrophe. So two things that you have to consider when it comes to apostrophe. One, if you are showing a possession, you may use apostrophe. And if you're contracting letters, you may make use of apostrophe in the sentence. Some examples are here. They are, can't, cannot, I have. Apostrophes are used to indicate possession. The dog's tail, the tail of the dog. If the owner ends in S already, you can just add the apostrophe without the S. This is, again, a common mistake identified. If your word is ending with S, you don't have to rewrite, or you don't have to use S again after the apostrophe, because that shows the possession. For example, the car belonging to Chris. Chris's car. That's how we pronounce, and that's how it should be written. If a word ends in S, because it's a plural, then you don't need another S when you add an apostrophe. Babies, churches, dolls. So apostrophe isn't required. You can express the possession. S isn't required. You can express the possession by making use of an apostrophe. It's easier when a plural doesn't end in S. Then you go back to normal and add an apostrophe and an S. For example, the nest of a family of mice, the mice's nest. And there are some words which you can definitely have a look at to know that it already shows that ownership. So you don't have to make use of, apostrophe there. There are some words that don't need an apostrophe when they are showing ownership. They are possessive pronouns, remember? Mine, yours, his, hers, ours, theirs, its. So this is how you show the major difference when you are making use of apostrophe in two different manners. And this is how you can very freely use apostrophe in your writing. So if this is clear, I request you to just have a look at it and help me out in finding some of the words which can be contracted, which can be shortened. So I request you to have a look at it and at least give me 2 words.
May I?
Yeah, please.
Ma'am, for the following words, it can be he, stoppish S. For you will it will be you, stoppish double L. For it will also be the same. For you are, it will be you, stoppish RE.
Okay, fine. So shall I take the word cannot here? How can we write this cannot?
Ma'am, we can write can, stoppish T or
Can't.
maybe.
Can't. That's how we utter this word. That's how we pronounce.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So some more words. So there are a couple of words which I have put down, which can be contracted, but a word or more that I can have. You can take 1 line or maybe 2 lines. You can just help me out in finding that what words can be contracted. Yes.
Ma'am, you can use had plus not hadn't.
Hadn't. Okay. Yes, it can be used. 1 more.
For does and not, it can be does not, doesn't.
Doesn't.
It's
okay.
It's already mentioned, I think.
Yeah, I have listed out. That is what I'm saying. But if you look at it, will you be able to make these contracted combinations? Will you be able to use apostrophe for showing possession? Right. That's my doubt. And you can just confirm it to me that I don't have to worry about it if you go with this exercise. Just a minute. I'm just fixing my screen, crossed my fingers. So just give me a minute. All right. So you had a look at it and now you've understood that how you can make use of apostrophes, right? So here I go with this exercise and I want all of you to access this form and tell me how can we contract the words or where a possession can be used. It's not going to give any kind of confusion, I believe. So if you attempt some 2 or 3, that would be good. Later you can do it and you can submit it to me anytime so that we can have look at other punctuation marks as well, if you all agree.
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah, at least spend some time, do 1 or 2 or 3 of sentences, 3 out of these sentences, and then we can move to next idea.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for responding. Let's get into it. You can spend time and you can do these exercises. I have not kept it in a time frame. Let's have a look at it. Comma. We have been talking about comma in many ways, and it has numerous, ways of one takes comma in numerous ways. So we have to look at it to understand what is the limit wherein we can make use of a comma, we have to separate this comma from semicolon. And then there is this different way of using a colon, entirely different way. So general understanding of using comma in writing is to give a pause, right? So give a pause in your writing. How to make use of it in a different way. So comma can be used to give a slight pause. Comma can also be used to give additional information. For example, the next neighbor is a close friend of mine, will come and receive the parcel from me. So what is this extra information over here in this sentence? A very close friend of mine is an extra information or an additional information to the subject for the verb or for the object or to reach the sentence or to reach the end of the action, right? So when you are making an additional information in a sentence regarding the subject, you can very well make use of a comma separating that additional information from rest of the sentence. One thing. You can very well use commas to separate names like egg, comma, butter, comma, milk, comma, bread, right? You can also make use of a comma when you are making use of two or more adjectives for the same noun or for the same subject. For instance, this young, pretty girl is a friend of mine. So young and pretty are two adjectives for the same subject. You can make use of a comma and you can write it down. You can express as pretty, yeah, right? To separate the verb of saying from the words spoken in a direct speech, here comes the important role of a comma, that you might fail to put a pause, but then you have to be extra careful when you are into this writing of an indirect speech or a direct speech, especially direct speech. So perhaps you write in a way, he says, comma, I am an obedient student, in double inverted, in inverted commas, right? Closing the sentence with a full stop or maybe exclamation or question mark if that's the case in a sentence, depending on the nature of the sentence. So you have to be careful when you're making use of a comma in a sentence where a verb is placed. So you divide the sentence from a verb when you're quoting somebody's statement or idea. That's how we make use of a comma. And it is simple, trust me. Once you practice, it will be easy for you to make use of a comma that way. So here I share a link with you. You can quickly take up 1 or 2 points over here right now so that we can get into, other idea as well. And I'll be responding to these responses. So don't have to worry about the answers. I believe you are going through these sentences and deciding.
Yeah, ma'am, you can move forward if you want to.
Okay. Hyphen. I can't hear you. I just hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Thank you so much. I just got confused. So, okay, coming to this idea of hyphen and dash. Before I go for dash, let's have a look at hyphen. When can you use hyphen and what is the sign of a hyphen? So hyphen is always shorter than dash. Try to get this. Hyphen are used to form compound words or join word groups, right? And that can be, day, night, daydreaming. That can be one example where you are using a hyphen to join the compound words. Use a hyphen with some prefixes or suffixes. Again, a way for us to make use of a hyphen in your sentence. For instance, cooperate. So co ends with letter O and operate ends with letter O. So similar letters are there. So to avoid the confusion, you can very well make use of a hyphen separating and giving the same sense, right? So use hyphen to link the names or other identifiers that belong together. Again, a way for you to use hyphen. Thankfully, right? Gracefully, a way for you to make use of a hyphen over here. Use a hyphen in compound numbers from 29 to 99. You must have, as we have now learned how to write numerates, you must have gotten an idea when you are using numerates, spelling it out in your writing, you have to be careful that you can make use of a hyphen over there, bringing more clarity to the digit instead of writing 90 space 9. So if it is a joined word, you have to make use of hyphen, bringing clarity to it, because it can be 99, 83, maybe a sentence can be that way as well. Use a hyphen fraction when written out as words. Use a hyphen when two or more words are joined to form a single adjective before the noun. You can also make use of a hyphen with nouns that follow a single letter. I'll give you some examples. So there is this, there is this pizza, which is, divided in 10 sections. So if I take 3 sections of that pizza, how am I going to spell it out? How am I going to write it down? I'll write third 10th part of pizza is with me instead of, writing it down in numerics. So bringing more clarity to that division of mine. Then using a hyphen with noun following a single letter. Let me give you one example. We often use V-neck. So how do we write that? We write the letter V, hyphen and neck. Let me give you one more example. B-school. How do you write B-school? You just write B, letter B, and then hyphen, and there is this school. So that's how you can make use of hyphen. Before we get into any kind of exercise, let me just tell you when you can make use of dash, which is more casual, or shall I say, which is a little informal when you are making use of a dash in your writing, but that doesn't mean that you can take it for granted. So how to make use of dashes? And this will bring more clarity to you that when you can make use of a hyphen and when you are supposed to make use of a dash. Again, if there is this extension to your idea, you can make use of dash. You may make a minor change, Nihal, if I may call out your name, when you are using a colon or you are using a dash, because you have an extension to that main idea. Right. So a dash more commonly used in informal writing. Again, it is going to limit you because if you have to decide whether your writing is informal or formal. So this has several functions. Let's look at it. Use a dash to show a break in thought in a sentence where you just talk to yourself, or maybe that particular idea is not carrying much importance. You can use a dash. You have to again close that idea with a dash, and then you can go in your sentence. You can go in your idea. You can frame a line. You can frame a sentence. So use a dash to set off information that is dramatic. Again, when you're narrating something, right? Especially if there are dialogues, if you're writing a dialogue, you're narrating something, you can make use of a dash over there, and then you make it more dramatic and you explain your narrative. Use a dash to summarize or provide information. A way for you to use a dash. You can also use a dash to enclose an interrupting word or word group. That this is separate, but part of it, but is not of much importance, but still a piece of information for you to look at. So this is how you make use of these different punctuation marks in your sentences, in your writing, to make it more interesting for a reader to go through it. And it also tells that you are mature enough in carrying this type of writing style. So this is what I have to say. I'll be sharing a couple of links with all of you so that you can have a look at it. And here I go, you can practice it, and I'll be also sending you the responses of your worksheets that you have done so far. So nothing much to say. Here I end my session. Thank you very much for attending it.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And there is an announcement for all the students. Tomorrow's session is very interesting, and we shall meet you in the next edition of Academic writing, and this session is going to be on academic research writing. How are you going to go ahead with it? So we really, really look forward to meet each one of you tomorrow. It's going to be a really very interesting session, and I am grateful to you, Ritu ma'am, for sharing your inputs with our young students.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
On that note, thank you very much to each one of you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.